Okay, good morning, everyone. I guess I'm going to start. First of all, welcome. I'm very happy that you all could join this morning. I'm Luis da Silva. I'm the Executive Director of the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative, and we're here to talk about our CCI CyberArts and Design program for 2023 and give you some examples of programs or projects that were funded in the previous round of this program. And then take any questions that you may have. So please use the Q&A button to post any questions, and we'll get to that in a bit. So for those of you who haven't been involved with CCI before, I want to just briefly say that the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative is about 3 years old now, and we are funded by the Commonwealth of Virginia with a mission of research, innovation, workforce development in cybersecurity, and our grand vision is to position the state as a global leader in cybersecurity across all of these mission lines, so in research and workforce development and in innovation. And what makes us really unique, I think, is that it's a consortium of 41 higher education institutions, so colleges and universities throughout Virginia. Virginia Tech holds what's called the hub of CCI with the mission of coordinating the entire network. There are also regional nodes of CCI in Northern Virginia, Central, Southwest, and Coastal Virginia, each of which is led by a different university. Altogether, we're more than 300 researchers. With this program, we also want to keep expanding the number and diversity of researchers who engage with CCI. So the CyberArts program is one very specific program that we have run once before, about 2 years ago. It was a huge success, and you're going to hear from some of the researchers who were funded in that program and what they accomplished a little bit later. And it was such a big success that we wanted to run it again. So we have a call for proposals at the moment, and we're calling it the CyberArts and Design program. The challenge is the same as the first time around, is to reimagine and depict the results of cybersecurity research. And of course, in particular, we're interested in research that occurs within CCI for either scientific or creative arts purposes. So the first time around, we had an information session like this one, and I had some examples that I took from other groups, some ideas that artists and designers in other universities had applied to technology problems, not necessarily cybersecurity, and I gave those examples. But this time around, we have something better because we have the actual projects that the program funded in the first time. So we have some very specific examples that you're going to hear directly from the researchers who led those projects. The funding comes from the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative, and I'm really grateful for the partnership from the VCU, the Vinci Center, and Virginia Tech's ICAT, the Institute for Creativity, Arts, and Technology. And you're going to hear shortly from some of the leaders of these two groups. So their partnership and input throughout the entire program has been really instrumental the first time around, and we count on their help again this time. I'm going to go over some elements of the call, not a lot, but some things that I think could generate some questions. But ultimately, the rules of engagement are available from our website. So this is the URL. If you go to our website, cyberinitiative.org, and navigate through research and proposals, you're going to find the call. First of all, eligibility. So the principal investigator for the proposal needs to be a researcher, could be a faculty member at any public institution that is part of CCI. And that person needs to be deemed eligible by their home institution to serve as a principal investigator on an external grant. So the requirement of coming from a public institution in CCI that comes from the state and from the way that we are funded. So this is a hard requirement. Then to determine who within that institution is eligible to serve as a PI, as a principal investigator, we leave it up to the university or college itself to determine. We allow a maximum of one proposal as the principal investigator per person. The award is made to the home institution of the principal investigator. So the proposal may have investigators from multiple universities, but the award is going to be made to the institution of the PI. And then if there is a subaward to another institution, that's up to the home institution of the PI to handle the subaward. We allow individuals to serve as either PI or co-PI on a maximum of 2 proposals. So maximum of 1 as the PI, a maximum of 2 total. So you can have 2 as the co-PI, 1 as the PI, and 1 as the co-PI. The budget, so our maximum budget is $25,000, and part of the requirement of the proposal is that it would contain the breakdown of the budget and a budget justification. We're trying to make these proposals as simple as possible, so not overly long or burdensome. It has a component that describes the project, and then it has the award budget. So a maximum of $25K. The period of performance that we anticipate is 1 year. And there are a few things that cannot be covered as part of the budget. So indirect costs cannot be included. Again, there's a requirement from the state, from the way that we are funded. And all the universities that are part of CCI are well aware of that, so it has not been an issue. We cannot fund course development costs, so we do not have a mission of degree programs and course development, so that's just not part of CCI. We are not allowed to cover scholarships. We can cover contributions to salary, summer salary, and so on. We can cover graduate research assistantships, and we are requiring that any proposal must include some travel funds to support participation in the annual CCI symposium, which happens every year in April. To date, we always hold that in Richmond, so that could change, but it's likely to be in Richmond. And also plans CCI CyberArts exhibit. And we're going to show you a video of the exhibit that we ran as part of the previous version of this program. So in that one, we don't know where it's going to take place yet. So it's going to be within Virginia. It could be basically anywhere. Last time it was in Roanoke. And the proposal itself should have enough budget for you to take an exhibit to be part of this larger exhibit and event. And the evaluation criteria are also part of the call. So if you go on the website, that's what it says. So there are 4 criteria that are used by the reviewers. One is intellectual merit related to cybersecurity and the arts. Very important relevance to the focus of the call. So there has to be a story about how the project brings together these elements of cybersecurity and the arts and design. In the past, we've had some of the projects focus more on the research aspect. Some of the projects have resulted in innovation with potential for commercialization. Some build awareness of cybersecurity. So part of the evaluation also is the broader impacts to CCI's mission, and that could be across one or more of these mission lines of research, innovation, and workforce development. And finally, one evaluation criterion is what tangible outcome will result from the project. And that could be, for example, a piece of art, it could be a performance, So something tangible, that's the result of the project. And to give you maybe some ideas, I'd like to play a short video, and that video is going to show some of the researchers involved in the previous round of the CyberArts program, and in particular, their participation in an exhibit at the Taubman Museum of Art in Roanoke. So let me show you the video before we hear from some of the researchers.
Inside Roanoke's Taubman Museum of Art, the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative brings artists together for a unique exhibit giving people a new look at cybersecurity.
Yeah, just enough where we can slide it.
Tanner Upthegrove with Virginia Tech's Institute for Creativity, Arts, and Technology gives visitors an opportunity to immerse themselves in the middle of a cyber attack. His Tesseract project turns data into sound and puts it in a 3D space.
We have the innate ability to hear sound around us at all times. And this takes advantage of that by placing different sounds at different loudspeakers inside of the system.
5 CCI-funded projects bringing together artists and cybersecurity researchers from universities across Virginia are on display to help visitors hear and see cybersecurity in a different way. Graphic designer Michael McDermott bought dozens of discarded devices online and curated a display of personal information former phone owners likely thought was inaccessible.
We wouldn't go into a Goodwill and give like our family photo album to Goodwill probably, because we wouldn't want people seeing that, right? But we don't think about that with our digital selves, which has way more information than any of those two things would have.
Network tech, cryptographer.
Old Dominion's Kevin Moberly used CCI's grant to hire student artists and game developers to create a game allowing players to test their cybersecurity skills.
We wanted to create a game that was aimed at late middle school and high school students to sort of educate them, not about cybersecurity, though that kind of happens as you're playing, but about what working in the cybersecurity industry is like, to sort of get students interested.
Kate Sicchio combines her expertise in dance and technology to collaborate with a data researcher looking at how to prevent our movement from being used to determine our identities.
I really do think artists have a lot to say about technology. As a dance artist, I really feel like I bring so much about knowledge about movement and bodies to the table that a lot of, AI programmers, for example, like my collaborator, don't have.
Artists who never considered themselves cybersecurity experts or even part of the solution are now helping a community see cybersecurity like they've never seen before.
I never thought I'd have this kind of opportunity to work with cybersecurity experts. I'm not one, but I'm starting to learn what that means. So getting to have an artistic voice within a community that may not have thought about art in the past is really powerful.
Inside Roanoke's Taubman.
All right, so that hopefully gives you some idea of some of the outcomes of the previous round of projects. And we're going to hear from the researchers themselves in a couple of minutes. But before we go there, I'd like to ask 2 of our partners in the previous round and this round of the program to say a few words. So maybe I can start with you, Alison. So Alison Schumacher is with the Vinci Center at VCU.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm Alison Schumacher. I'm the Director of Academic Alchemy for the VCU Vinci Center. And for those of you who may not be aware of what we do something very similar to what CCI is doing with this program, in that we do cross-disciplinary education. So we're bringing together arts and business and engineering to solve some real-world problems. And it is a big part of why we are a big fan of this program and Commonwealth Cyber Initiative. And we can see the connections that can happen across disciplines, and we can help benefit a larger group of people and society by bringing multiple minds and different mindsets together. So we are very proud to be here, very proud of Katie's work as she has produced for the last exhibit, and look very much forward to reading your proposals. But yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Alison. And I'd like also to ask Ben Knapp, who is the director of Virginia Tech's ICAT, to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Louise, and thank you, Louise, again for allowing us to do this. I think that this is one of the, if not only, certainly one of very few programs like this in the country that really tries to merge science and the arts together to solve grand challenges like cybersecurity. So I just really, really appreciate you giving us the opportunity. Yes, I run the Institute for Creativity, Arts, and Technology here at Virginia Tech, that itself has funded around 180 projects over the years at the boundaries between science, engineering, the arts, and design. And the only thing I will add is, well, first of all, thank you for the participants that are here today. Please spread the word about this initiative. Again, it's a very unusual, if not unique initiative, and would love to see some terrific applications like we did last year. And the last thing is simply the elements of combining the arts and design with science and engineering amplifies the impact, and both the folks that have already talked, and Louise has mentioned, and the folks that will be talking, will talk about the incredible impact that they have in reaching this much broader audience that may not know about cybersecurity. Don't forget, it's also going to reach high school students and folks that might be interested in going into these fields and have never heard of it. So number one, increased impact. Number two, the ability to educate people about topics that they may know nothing about or have heard incorrectly about. This is how the arts and design really can reach out and take the science and really educate the public. And the last thing that people always forget is the opportunity for discovery. We saw a project that put spatial audio from a cyber attack around individuals. And the question is, can we learn new things about the data through spatialized audio or through any of these projects? Are there ways of doing new ways of discovery when you have an artist and a designer metaphorically in a room with an engineer or scientist? So that's what makes me so thrilled about this project. And I just thank you very, very much, all of you, for considering being involved.
So thank you, Ben. And again, your partnership and Allison's has been really instrumental to the success of this, and has been really fun also to talk to both of you as we have built the program. Just to kind of confirm or reinforce what you just said, yesterday I spent the whole day at the Embassy of Sweden in Washington, D.C. With a group of Swedish universities, and one thing that they highlighted was a collaboration between Georgetown and a Swedish university in the arts and medicine in that case. And then I was asked, okay, do you guys do anything like that? And I was able to say, oh, do we do something? I can tell you about 5 projects, and here's a video, and it's like, it's super impressive what we can reach. And they're also talking about how the arts can somehow bypass in our brains some of the brain components that are responsible for rational thought, and then elicit some more visceral reaction, and how powerful that is. So anyway, you all know much more about that than I do. So I'll stop talking and let some of the researchers talk. I want to introduce Michelle McDonald. She's our Director of Communications and Marketing in CCI. She's actually leading this project from CCI's hub. And I'll let Michelle say a few words and then introduce the researchers.
Thank you, Louise. I'm delighted to have all of the artists here today to talk about their work. It was a fantastic exhibit in November, and I'm looking forward to what this call for proposals reveals. But first up, Michael McDermott. He's an assistant art professor at George Mason University, and I know you all will be very interested to learn more about his undeleted project. We'll wait a moment while Michael shares his.
All right, I think we're up, yeah. So I'm Michael McDermott. I teach at George Mason in the School of Art. I'm an assistant professor, and my project that I worked on was called Undeleted. And so just like a really quick one sentence thing about what happened was that I went on eBay, bought boxes of phones. I think I have like 400 or 500 phones. And then just sorted through them and tried to find ones that were working or that would be able to be used in this. So the general then process of that was finding a working phone, and that meant one that could turn on. And generally that was it. Sometimes like the screen didn't need to work, whatever that was, or I had extra screens I could swap or extra batteries I could swap. So a lot of the phones I bought were 4 parts, knowing that I could do a little bit of like Frankensteining together if I needed to get the phones to work with the program that I was using. So then I would find a working phone, plug it in to the program that is called XRY, that is I think generally used for law enforcement, to extract as much data as it could. The project initially was thinking, oh, I'll find some stuff that was had been deleted and that whoever was getting rid of the phone thought was gone. But in the end, I found people who just like had unlocked phones that still worked with all of their information on it. So the volume of data that I found was sort of overwhelming and just all over the place. So I found pictures, images, text, locations, videos, audio, contact lists, web histories, like all of that kind of stuff that I can show you some examples of here in a minute. But then I had all this like gigabytes and hundreds of gigabytes of data that I tried to comb through them, and in the end it was just like sort of impossible to comb through it all. So here is an example of a phone. So this was a phone that was bought in a lot of 26 phones for $25. The size that the program extracted was 14.6 gigabytes. And then here's kind of like the breakdown over on the right side of all of what there was. And so the right column is deleted information and the left column is just all of the information that was there. So 61,000 pictures, where this one didn't so this phone actually was only used for a week, I was able to find out. And so the number for the pictures is a little bit inflated because it takes like all of the app images and things that are associated with that. So 900, about 1,000 text messages going through there, and of that 130 were deleted, a bunch of cookies and history and locations. There were 2 locations for this phone. So all of that information, and then trying to go through it and figure out what's interesting and what's worth showing, and what can be done with that. So some examples of just like what I was able to pull. This was kind of the initial thinking of I would find images that looked like this that had been deleted and recovered, and so they're fragmented, and you don't get the whole image, but you sort of get a picture of what's going on. Some more interesting than others and some more kind of fragmented than others. But then there are also just like pictures that people took that were fully there. Part of the project was to not identify people or show who this was and try to get people to say like that was them, but to look at these images and say, oh, like what happened to my old phones, and there's my information there, and what did I do? This was interesting. This was one phone that had a ton of locations just like off the coast of Africa. No idea why. It was there. She was like a teacher in Pennsylvania, so I'm not sure why this happened, but just like an interesting sort of thing. This was a phone from probably like a 10-year-old girl that lived in Maryland, and I actually recognized this. This is like the mall, I think, sort of close to BWI. And I recognized that area and then found out that it was in Maryland. So there are contact lists. This was that girl's phone, and she had a lot of emojis after everyone's name, which was interesting. Text messages. This was from the phone that was used for about a week. Cookies, deleted and not deleted things, sites, text messages. And so then taking all that information, trying to figure out what to do with it. So here's a bunch of the phones that I had. One way of displaying that was printing the images individually and having them hanging in a gallery that people could walk around and see. In each section of this is a specific phone and kind of gives a portrait of that person. So there's like one phone's information. And then the other way was what you saw in the video with this wall of phones that were playing videos. So each of these is a unique video that was just looping over and over again and showing text messages. There were broken phones displayed to give a range of the kind of phones that we're seeing. And just like a way where you could kind of look around and see things. And just real quickly, this is kind of what that looks like, just with all the phones going. There's some video playing in the background through there, and so it just goes, and then this is just like what those videos look like kind of individually. So they're just taking, this is really just a dump of information that is run through a couple scripts to output these videos here. But yeah, so thanks. That was my project.
Thank you, Mike. And next up is Kevin Moberly. He is the Program Director of Game Design and Development and Criticism at Old Dominion University.
All right, let me just share my screen and we'll get started. And slideshow, everybody can see that. Okay, good. So my name, yeah, as Michelle just said, it's Kevin Moberly, and I was fortunate enough to get funded by CCI for this. I need to say though, it wasn't just me, it was an interdisciplinary team of researchers from VMask, from Civilian Cyber, which is a private cybersecurity company, from Virginia Commonwealth University, from Radford, and from Old Dominion University. And we made a game. We made a game called NetTech Warriors, but and again, I'm being a little bit duplicitous because we didn't actually make the game. We spent the vast majority of our CCI money on student interns. And we put out an open call for student interns at ODU, VCU, and Radford. And we said, we're looking to produce to put together an interdisciplinary team of students to make a game that's designed to solve one of the things that Ben mentioned, the recruitment gap in cybersecurity. We wanted to make a game that was aimed at high school students, that was designed to educate high school students, yes, about cybersecurity, but to more educate them, or more to get them interested in cybersecurity as a career and what it meant. And so our students worked, we had a team of 11 interns from cybersecurity, game design, art. I think we had an oceanography student in there. It just they had to apply, and they had to, it was competitive. We had like 100 students apply, and we chose 11 out of them. And we spent most of the time, Michael talked about process. What makes games art is the mechanics and the rules and the balance and the way they create experience through all these three things. So we spent a lot of the time prototyping the game. First of all, the students broke into teams and they came up with the rules and concepts, and we had them pitch their rules and concepts, and then we sort of said, okay, we were, these are the ones we like, and then we modified them. And so these are some pictures of early prototypes of the board and the board being made. We did spend a lot of time on extensive play testing. I mean, we spent hours and hours and hours and hours play testing this game. And this was during the pandemic. It was in that summer when the pandemic kind of died down just a little bit. And so we did virtual play testing, we did in-person play testing, and these are some images of where we had like rules written down on the whiteboard in ODU's library to say this mechanic works, it's not powerful enough, that sort of thing. And then there's one of the student interns, Hakeem Dixon, who's now graduated and working at VMask, is stenciling out the hexagons for the board. There's another where we were doing virtual play testing of the game. And so we generated an initial prototype, a paper prototype of, and this is what it looked like, the first version of it, that we could then sort of use as a showpiece to kind of, more visualize, because we got the mechanics down, we got the mechanics that we thought they were working, but then we needed to work on the aesthetics. The student artists were creating, these are some of the student art for the cards for the game. I think this was Trin Tra, who is one of our interns for Virginia Commonwealth University, working under Ryan Patton. And so, and the Robin, forget her last name, also did the graphic design for which I really like for the cards and things like that. And again, this is just a one of like 40 something cards. We had loot cards, we had malware cards, we had chance cards and that sort of thing. So all of those had to be designed. And then the final step is Louise announced the exhibit at Taubman. So we took that as a sort of prompt to say, okay, let's get this thing, let's get the aesthetics locked down. We have the rules kind of locked down. We have the mechanics kind of locked down. Let's get the aesthetics locked down. So we took the initial designs and we 3D printed a board. We processed, we photoshopped and did cards and produced pieces and things like this. And this was sort of what some of the final exhibit looked like. We had, all of these are various prototypes in various states of completion and messed up and things like that, because I wanted to show what the process of making a game is like. What our future goal, we also did play testing at the Taubman Museum. We play tested it with NVIDIA with some people from a local board game club showed up and they gave us some really good feedback, such as, hey, the language in your playing cards is inconsistent and things like that, which I felt kind of embarrassed about because I should have caught. But and anyways, so our next step is based on the play testing we did at Taubman, play testing we've done at a cyber education conference. We have gotten a lot of feedback. We originally were going to make it digital, but we got a lot of feedback from cybersecurity teachers who would like it to be they want something that they can play in their classroom. So we are currently working with two of the student interns are leading the project, Alania God and Olivia Hornland. We're working with them to secure funding to commercialize this and to hopefully bring it to classrooms and things like that. The idea is that the profits from this game will go back into a sort of center for cybersecurity and gaming in which we can make more games. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Let me stop sharing.
More about the process that go into these projects. Next up is Kate Sicchio. She's an assistant professor of dance and media technologies at Virginia Commonwealth University. Kate, take it away.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, so my project was called Moving Choreography to a New Universe, an AI-driven privacy automation approach. So I'm a choreographer. All of my work somehow involves technology, though, in various ways. I've worked a lot with real-time video projection, which you can see in one corner of the screen. I do this practice called live coding, where I actually perform computer programming as a performative practice and create these performance scores for dancers to follow. And more recently, I've been choreographing human robot teams. So all of these things sort of inform my CCI work. And as part of this project, I worked with a data scientist from ODU, Yan Liu, who specializes in machine learning, particularly GAN models and image-to-image transfer, which became a big part of this project. So what's interesting actually is maybe how I heard of this call, because I didn't. I actually, Yan reached out to me in a cold email and was like, hey, I'm a data scientist and this call looks really neat and I would love to work with an artist. And I was Googling and I found that you're a choreographer who has done stuff with machine learning in the past. What kind of problems have you come across? What kind of solutions can I bring to your work as a data scientist? So that was sort of where we started. And I'm just going to play some visuals in the background while I talk about the actual project. So yeah, so that was sort of a unique start. And I like to say yes. So I was like, yes, let's figure out a collaboration. And we really, one of the things we talked about a lot in our initial discussions was that I use a lot of data in my work, whether it's, video, whether it's, I've done stuff with still images, I've done stuff with sensor data. So I have these like collections of data that belong to dancers that I've worked with in the past. And there's this like interesting thing of like, well, is that identity of the dancer important in the data? Or is it something that I can keep private for them, but still somehow use some of this information to create new work or to extend the work or to work with new dancers? Often, I don't have like a set company of dancers. Often I work with freelance dancers and sort of like what we call a pickup company style. So I'm not usually working with the same people. So yeah, how do I like work with someone's data, but still have this sort of sense of, respecting their privacy. I also needed the data to also still have the identity of a dancing body, to also still keep movement apparent and available and readable. And then the last thing I was really interested in was aesthetics. It was really important to me that whatever we did to particularly the imagery that we ended up working with, looked good. I wanted there to be something about it that was enticing to work with, that did have a sense of like artistry to it. So those were sort of the criteria that I came up with. And Yang came up with this image to image transfer algorithm that we used to, we did this basically on video stills, and then created the videos together to get imagery that looked like this. So these are videos of dancers that have then been put through this machine learning algorithm that then produces these sort of watercolor aesthetic videos where you can definitely tell it's still a moving body, but certain aspects of the identity have definitely been masked. So let's see if I can get to the next slide. So yeah, so sort of the maybe test bed for this work was performance at the Tubman Museum. So in this case, I took these videos that we had processed and brought them into a live coding system I work with. So the videos were some of my dance students at VCU, and then the performer here is Sarah Dellinger, another dancer who was not in these original videos. So again, this idea of like using other data in a new performance. And I guess really the test of this performance was like, can I implement this in a system and it's still legible for Sarah to be able to interpret this movement as a dance, as a score, and actually still be able to, bring that into an embodied performance. And I would say it was quite successful. There's a lot actually of qualities that particularly this watercolor aesthetic bring that are nice to move with, to embody, as well as being able to actually see the gestures still and build off of that. So that was sort of a proof of concept performance that we did in terms of, finding this way of concealing identity, but also still using the movement data in a performance. And I guess also just to wrap up, in terms of like CCI and proposing work, I actually am working on a new CCI project that's about human and robotic interactions. And so we're interested in how to bring privacy to various cybersecurity to various like biometric settings when humans are interacting with robots. So that also has, a movement component, a robotics component, and a cybersecurity component. So as an artist, I feel like don't feel like your scope with CCI ends with this call. I think that artists should be involved with as many CCI calls as possible. I'm sure other people on the panel agree. But this was a great starting point for me in terms of like seeing my work through the cybersecurity lens. So yeah, I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Kate. Now I need to know more about your coding human robot teams, but for another day. Now, next up will be Tanner Upthegrove. He's an immersive audio specialist at ICAT and the Center for Human Computer Interaction at Virginia Tech. He had 2 projects that he can talk about.
Thank you, Michelle. I'll just talk about one for this presentation, but I'm happy to follow up on the other one. I just want to say I'm constantly impressed by the diversity of breadth of skills and viewpoints from these projects. So it's always cool to see everybody present their work from the CCI. So the project I want to talk about is called Tesseract for short, or the long name I'm not going to read out loud. So this is kind of a two-pronged project. One is to build a spatial audio system that's portable to take places. And then the second is to generate spatial audio data and just turn it into sound to hear what cybersecurity attacks, in particular, denial of service attack, might sound like. So I'd like to play this for just a few seconds. And I recognize that may not have come through perfectly, but you probably heard clicks and ticks and other kinds of sounds. That is taking a denial of service attack and turning it into sound, in particular spatial audio. And this project is fundamentally based on the amazing human ear. So if you're doing cybersecurity research, you may be looking at screens all day long that show all kinds of data, but it's pretty rare to have data sonified or turned into sound, whether it's an alert or the actual data coming in. So here's some really great facets of the human ear which enable this project. We can hear all around innately. We can separate sources, so we can parse apart all these different sounds at one time. And then the second part of this project is the infrastructure. So if you're wondering why it's called the Tesseract, this is my office. This is the Cube at Virginia Tech. And it has 140 loudspeakers in it. It's very big and it doesn't move. So the CCI helped fund a mini cube that can fit inside the bigger cube. Hence we call it the Tesseract. And we can take this smaller system around and present the spatial audio that we've created from cybersecurity attacks. So here's one instance of it in the upper gallery at the Moss Arts Center. There are 32 small loudspeakers typically on this system, and it's quick to set up and take apart, and it can present 3D sound to a small group. And this is where it gets really fun when you have a group of kids come and sit inside this thing and wonder, what am I listening to? What is going on? I have no idea what this is. Then you've got a great entry point to talk about cybersecurity, spatial audio, and their futures. So that's been a real hallmark for me for this project. And this is a picture from the Taubman exhibit where the Tesseract was set up to give a sense of scale. And I guess I'd conclude by saying many of the team is students, so we used a lot of the funding to pay students to create cybersecurity sounds, to experiment with data, mostly denial of service attacks, to create these 3D sound examples, which are both informative, but we also treat them as musical compositions. So we've had this work played at concerts and other venues where you'd present art in addition to a more public engagement setting. So I'll stop there, and I appreciate the moment.
Thank you, Tanner, and Mike and Kevin and Kate. I hope everyone's as inspired by these ideas as I am. I'm always also, when I hear about the projects, even though I've seen the projects, I've known about them for more than a year, it still surprises and impresses me. So I'd like to just open it up for any questions from the participants. You can use the Q&A box. And so Tina is saying that she didn't hear anything. Maybe that was in Tanner's video. I couldn't really hear it either, but it may be just because it wasn't coming across too loud.
I'll post the YouTube in the chat right now, so you can listen to it.
But I can attest to the fact that there are clicks and different pitch sounds coming from different directions. So any questions about the program, the call itself, or anything else from the researchers? As Ben mentioned, we also count on all of you to disseminate the call. I don't know, Kate, that you hadn't heard about the call, that you were contacted by Jan. That's a great way to know about it, by the way, but we also want the artists to know about the call. So Mohammed is asking, can it involve IoT, or can it combine cybersecurity and IoT environments like e-health and transportation systems? Absolutely. So it's important, of course, to have the cybersecurity aspect come across clearly. IoT and securing IoT systems is very much within scope for CCI. Any other questions? Is IoT related to arts? So yes, so the arts aspect and the cybersecurity aspects both need to be present. And so so this is not a purely engineering IoT security type of call, but where you bring an artistic sensibility or a design sensibility to the problem. In the case of the previous round, all of these projects were actually led by faculty in the creative arts. I think that worked very well. They often worked with engineers, computer scientists, but so it's not a strict requirement of the call that they be led by faculty from the creative arts, but in the past that has been the case, and it worked well. But for sure, to fit within the scope of the call, it does need to combine the arts and design and cybersecurity.
And Louise, if I can jump in in Mohammed's question, I'm not sure, Mohammed, if you're looking for artists or whether you're one yourself, but there are many artists that are dealing with IoT based devices, especially in the performing arts, using IoT for dance and theater and things like that. So there are many approaches, and one of the things I failed to say at the beginning of the conversations today is that please feel free to send an email to any of the panelists, certainly myself, and if you don't know of an artist, if you're a technologist and need to know an artist, we might be able to bring folks in, and vice versa. If you're an artist looking for a technologist, I know that Louise's network of people, he might be able to put you together with people as well. So hopefully that helps a little more, Mohammed.
Yeah, I think that's great, Ben. Thank you. And one of the strengths of CCI is that we bring together these 41 institutions. So there is a huge wealth of programs and researchers in all of the arts and design, and we can also help broker some of these relationships, or you can reach out to one of them directly as well. And also, you don't need to be limited by some of the examples that we gave today, right? So I think we covered quite a bit. We covered sound design and choreography and game design and the visual arts, but there could be ideas in theater or sculpture or who knows. The sky is the limit. So Tina is asking about the NetTech Warriors game. Kevin,
yes,
you want to take that?
Yeah. One thing that we're doing is part of, and Kate mentioned she's doing stuff with CCI. We're pursuing some funding through CCI to commercialize this, and part of what we're going to be doing is putting together sort of a website to sort of say, this is what publicity, this is where it is, this is where it's at, and that sort of thing. Right now, we need to fund another round of play testing with, this thing needs to work in high school classrooms with high school students. And that's a very big, diverse audience. And there's some mechanical things like it needs to be playable in 45 minutes and some other sort of things. And we need to do that. And then we also need to finalize, as usual, the art. In game design, the last 15% of the game is the hardest, and we are on the last 15% of the game. So you can also email me, and I can, once we get this website, up and running. Yeah, I'd be glad to do that. And if you're a teacher, Tina, or you teach a classroom and you're interested in prototyping it in your classroom, that would be something we would be really interested in too. So.
Thanks, Kevin. And yeah, we would all love to see it as a game that can be commercialized and put in classrooms all over the world. And Kevin mentioned that he did some play testing to an audience of cybersecurity teachers in K through 12, and the reaction was fantastic. And then
Louise was one of the play testers in that audience.
Well, I got to play parts of the game. I would like to play the entire round of the game someday. But yeah, it was also great to see the reaction at the Tubman Museum of some real gamers, right? So, and you could see that first of all, they got it immediately. So all the rules and all the complexity, they're like immediately able to understand.
Yeah.
They provided a lot of good input. So yeah, the exhibit, which we plan to do again this time around with the projects that we fund, ended up being a real, I think, successful embodiment of all of these projects. So, and we are already talking to some museums, and we have a visit, Michelle and I, coming up in one of them as potential venues for the next exhibit. Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, so there's a question on matchmaking, partnerships, collaboration in future CCI conferences, time and opportunity to develop significant, sustainable, scalable networks and knowledge mobilization across communities that may not know one another. Yeah, so that's an important goal for us. So we hold these annual meetings. So this year we have so far almost 300 participants already registered, and so we are actually starting to run against the limits of the venue. We're getting so big, and one of the main objectives over 2 half days essentially is networking and getting to know one another and building these collaborations. And then we're starting to also reach out to other communities, for example, K through 12, through the Cybersecurity Education Conference. There's a cybersecurity experiential learning conference that is hosted by CCI in Coastal Virginia. That's starting to be an annual event. It's in its second round this year. So yeah, we keep building, but yeah, one particular goal is exactly making these connections. Michelle, a list of names of the presenters and their topics for follow-up. Is there something that is on the website? I mean, of course, this session is going to be recorded, so you will have that information in that form.
I can certainly send out the contact information for the artists.
And Tina, you say that you are in the district, Maryland, Virginia area. So some of these projects have been exhibited in Northern Virginia. So I know that Mike's has been exhibited in Fairfax. And we are also talking to a museum in this area as a potential venue for the next exhibit. Any other questions before we close? Okay, so we're reaching the end of our period. So again, thank you so much for participating. We look forward to lots of interesting, wonderful, creative proposals this time around. If you have any questions on the website, there is an email address that you can use for questions about the call. And of course, you can reach out to any of us directly. I'd like to thank all of our speakers today and our researchers. You always bring so much to the table. It's really great to hear from you. And to Ben, to Allison, who had to leave, to Aubrey, who organized this entire event, and to Michelle, who's leading the CyberArts program from CCI. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day, and hope to see you soon.